that, I am going to hand things off. Our first speaker, Yuri Diogenes from Microsoft, probably needs no introduction. Some of you probably have a few of his books sitting on your bookshelves. But Yuri, the floor is yours. Take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the intro. And let me share my desktop real quick here, because besides the slide deck, I also have a demo. And so let's go here. And I believe that, let me just switch this. And you should have should be able to see it now, right? Well, and let me also show my video. There we go. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining. Well, today we're going to talk about CNAP. I'm going to start the presentation with this very broad approach about CNAP in a very agnostic manner, and then I'm going to switch to talk about Microsoft CNAP. So as it was said, my name is Yuri Diogenes. I'm a principal PM manager for the customer experience engineer team at Microsoft, focused on Defender for Cloud. I've been at Microsoft for the past 18 years. Besides my work at Microsoft, I also teach in two universities, the Trine University and EC Constant University in the Bachelor's in Cybersecurity program. And I wrote some books about this subject as well. All right, so let's get started here. That we have a lot to cover. Let's get started. Before we even talk about Microsoft CNAP, I want to set the stage about some of the key considerations that you should have in mind when selecting your CNAP, your Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, which is a coin term that is created by Gartner. And one of the reasons behind the creation of this platform is really to avoid the silo approach that we used to have in the past, when we were focused only in cloud security posture management, in cloud work protection, as different platforms that were not really integrated with each other, and also taking consideration DevOps security, entitlement management services, external attack surface management, all those stuff coming together into a single platform. So when you think about Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, you have to think that it's not only about multi-cloud. Multi-cloud is a reality. We actually did a really good work with SAMS to release last year a survey about multi-cloud, and we've seen how customers are going into this direction, having different workloads in different cloud providers. So we need really to think about CNAP in a multi-cloud approach. But aside from that, we need to think about CNAP with resources that are still on-premise, because the reality is there will still be a lot of resources on-premise. So we need to, when selecting a solution, a CNAP solution, need to take in consideration, okay, does this CNAP solution also protect my on-premise workloads? So that's a very important point. The other thing is, one of the pillars of CNAP is CSPM, but integrated with other platforms within the CNAP. So CSPM is a imperative platform within the CNAP, but it needs to be way more intelligent than the traditional CSPM. What I mean by that is the traditional CSPM is very static, is based on a series of recommendations, a series of static approach to evaluate the workloads, assessments, benchmarks, and those things are important, don't take me wrong, but you need a way more intelligent way to approach that. In other words, you need to take in consideration a lot of insights that are coming from different platforms to take smart decisions, right? That's the whole idea of the CNAP, is how can I leverage the insights coming from DevSecOps, from external attack surface management, all those things into this platform, and then I can take smart decisions based on that. So you need to have a CSPM embedded into the CNAP that is able to contextualize everything. All right. The other thing is native support for in DevOps. This is extremely important. Some solutions, some vendors, they do have that, but they require additional license, additional purchase of different solutions to then integrate. In other words, it's not really part of the solution. Is almost like an add-on, and it should not be an add-on. It should be a built-in. In other words, your CNAPP solution needs to have the native integration with Kin and DevOps baked into the platform. The other point that is important as well is the CWP. CWP, Cloud Workload Protection, also needs to be included as part of the CNAPP, but CWP cannot be generic. In other words, when we are monitoring workloads in the cloud, Kubernetes, VMs, storage accounts, key vaults, databases, each one of those things, they have a different threat landscape. The threat landscape for a database is not the same as a Kubernetes, and is not the same as a storage account. So you really need to have a CWP platform that has analytics threat detections that were built specifically for that workload. Very important. And last but not least, you see that as you evolve into this journey of adopting a CNAPP solution, you need to start doing proactive hunting, which is, okay, I've done all the preventative work. I have all my analytics ready to detect fast, and I'm able to respond fast as well. But now I want to also do proactive hunting into my cloud security infrastructure to understand if there are indications of compromise, if there is anything that I'm missing, or if, for example, if there is a new 0-day, if I can search across my workloads to understand if they are vulnerable to that. So proactive hunting becomes part of this preventative work for organizations that are more mature in the adoption. So the way we view this life cycle, I should say, within the realm of the Federal Cloud, which is the Microsoft CNAPP solution, is we have the overarch Defender for Cloud, looking across all the workloads, leveraging Microsoft Threat Intelligence and leveraging the power of AI with Microsoft Copilot for Security. We have already baked into the platform a lot of our work with Microsoft Copilot for Security into Defender for Cloud. And with that foundation of using our TI, using AI, and integrating with GitHub Advanced Security as well, we are able to do this continuous assessment of the environment in order to reduce risk and enable the deployment from code to cloud to all the workloads, protecting these workloads, not only from runtime perspective, but also from introducing guardrails into the code to provide a better mechanism to avoid mistakes that were done in the code to be pushed to the cloud. And of course, if we think about the life cycle, we also need to empower SOC analysts to respond faster to attacks. So our analytics, our threat detection will feed into the SOC analysts that are using SIEM, such as Microsoft Sentinel, to consume those alerts and take smart decisions in order to respond fast to those threats. So that's an overview of how we have our solution integrated across all the pipelines. And expanding a little bit more on that, this is the architecture design of the solution when it comes to Defender. We have the pillar related to DevOps security management, all the shift left capabilities that are part of Defender for Cloud natively. We have the secure posture management also integrated natively in Defender for Cloud, and the workload protection platform with our analytics. Okay. Now, while this is the foundational part of Defender for Cloud, we also have integrated insights, and that's what I was talking about previously, is we need to be able to leverage the entire ecosystem of security provided by Microsoft. And we do that by leveraging insights about application security, external attack surface management, cloud entitlement and access permission, everything that comes from different solutions, they are inherited by Defender for Cloud as part of this solution, right? We don't need to have extra license to consume some of these insights. And the integration with other SIEM solutions, that's very important. As I said, we need to empower the SOC analysts to really do a better job doing threat hunting and consuming this data that we provide in Defender for Cloud when it comes to threat detection. All right, so this is the overview. Now I'm going to go to a planning perspective. Now, here is the part that is very agnostic. The overall plan is very agnostic, but we will materialize this into Defender for Cloud. But you can take notes. This is very generic. This is based actually on an ebook that we are releasing today during this event. We prepared this ebook, and this ebook will be shared in the Slack channel. The link is pretty easy. It's aka.ms/ms CNAP. And you can download this ebook with all the details. So what I'm talking about here when it comes to planning is really a summary of the ebook. So let's move forward here to the first one now, which is understanding your business. So if you think about even before adopting any CNAPP solution, really need to understand what is in for you and what do you really need. So the first step is considering business size, type, and industry. What type of industry you are working on? Is it financial industry? Is healthcare? Is a mix of a lot of things? You need to identify those workloads. You need to identify the workloads that are on premise, the workloads that are in the cloud, because this is probably one of the hardest tasks, is understanding how these workloads they spread across different cloud providers and across different types of industries, because you may have some workloads that are really strong on PII. They actually held customer information, so you need a different level of protection, most likely. Okay. Next one is assessing your current cybersecurity posture, which is, in order to understand where you're going, you need to understand the starting point. How can you even track progress if you don't know where you start, right? You need to understand the current cybersecurity posture so that you can start creating KPIs and even provide those KPIs to your CISO and say, here where we start when it comes to cybersecurity posture, here our vision for the first quarter and second quarter, and you can create this quarterly plan to check up on how you are progressing. So that's a very important point, is where I'm starting when it comes to cybersecurity posture and where I'm going, and understand that in between, there'll be a lot of challenges. There'll be a lot of challenges. It's not an easy task. It's a journey. It's a journey of continuous improvement. And that's the point, right? You always have the opportunity to get better. And that's all about cybersecurity. It's knowing that you're not going to be perfect, but you are aiming to do the best you can to achieve your metrics and to achieve your goals. Next is identify critical assets, right? You have to, as part of this initial exercise, you really need to identify what your critical assets are, where the data is located. This is very challenging. A lot of customers that we've been talking with, they really don't know the data sensitivity level across the workloads. They don't even know that they have sometimes data sensitivity sensitive data store in database or storage accounts or even APIs, because that's the other thing, right? It's not only about where the data is stored, it's not about only data at rest, but it's also about data in transit. So you need to think about those data in transit scenarios. So expanding a little bit on number 2, which is assessing your cybersecurity posture, we can think about identify infrastructure gaps. So if you think about your current infrastructure, what are some of the gaps that you have from the network infrastructure perspective, from the application security perspective? Identifying those gaps and see how CNAPP can fulfill that. Part of this exercise, you may identify that you are already using some tools to monitor things in an isolated manner. And you may be using the best, for example, let's use the example of vulnerability assessment. You may be using the best vulnerability assessment in the market, but that vulnerability assessment is isolated. It's not really getting the data and sharing across all the platforms so you can take smart decisions. It's very isolated. It work on this silo approach. You have a report there, but you cannot consume those insights in the CNAPP platform. So you have to reevaluate even the set of tools that you are utilizing today in your infrastructure. You have to look at legacy systems limitations because in some situations you may have to completely retire or plan the migration of those legacy workloads. This is a very tough call because we know that many times legacy systems you just don't want to touch because you know it's working, there is no patch for those things, but you have to be conscious about that and understand that if it is a legacy system that does not integrate with your CNAPP and it cannot be monitored, you have to have a different solution to isolate or a different network, completely isolate that system. But in other case, you may see that, oh, look at that. Some of these legacy systems can be monitored by my CNAPP solution. So understand those limitations and understand how you can really think about that. So that's another very important point. Overall, secure posture enhancement. How can CNAPP benefit you when it comes to the enhancement? So again, establish some of the KPIs that you want to go after and establish in this plan goals based on time frame. And I will always like to use the approach of SMART goals, right? They need to be specific, it needs to be measurable, attainable, and time bound. You really need to establish a time frame. This is what I want to achieve in 3 months. This is what I want to achieve in 6 months. So think about that as well. Of course, we couldn't really talk about cloud security without talking about regulatory considerations. So when you are adopting a CNAPP, you also have to think about that. How, first of all, which regulatory compliance standards that are available in the industry you have to comply with, and how the CNAPP solution can help you with that. How can you align the regulatory compliance standards that your workloads needs to adhere with the CNAPP? This is a very important point because there are many standards and you need to see how the CNAPP is going to help you with that and how the compliance will impact your overall cybersecurity strategy. Because theoretically, you already have a cybersecurity strategy as part of the vision of your company and everything, and how those two things, the CNAPP adoption and the cybersecurity strategy and the compliance requirements, will merge together to one help the other to continue to improve. And some additional considerations that you should think about, of course, is, okay, I have an environment that has workloads in Azure, in AWS, in GCP. How can I really have this single pane of glass to look across all those cloud providers from one single place, right? Because one of the challenges that we hear a lot is this spread of dashboards. Oh, I have a dashboard for AWS, I have a dashboard for GCP, and another one for Azure. So it's very challenging to understand everything coming together in one single secure posture. How can I identify that? Because one of the things that we also observe through our research and insights that we have across our threat intelligence is that threat actors are starting to understand that customer have multi-cloud, and guess what? They are actually doing attacks, cross cloud type of attacks. They are starting their attack in one cloud provider and moving laterally to another cloud provider. So that's very interesting. And you need to see if your CNAPP solution does have the identification of those type of attack. DevOps security considerations extremely important. You need to take in consideration code to cloud strategy. You need to take in consideration how which pipelines you have, which platforms are you use to ship code to the cloud, infrastructure as a code. All those things needs to be taken in consideration, and how CNAPP is going to absorb that and bridge the gap between devs and cloud secure administrators, because that's another challenge we've seen. These two different teams, sometimes they don't talk to each other. DevSecOps, they do have their own security tools, and Cloud Security Administrator, they have their own security tools. They are not integrated. They don't know what each one is doing. There is not really an exchange of insights between those tools. So it's very challenging. How can I take smart decisions if I'm working in silos within my own company? So you have to avoid that. And last but not least is something that I've been talking about. I talked in the first slide, which is proactive work. This is something that you really have to aim for. As you continue to get more mature, you need to be more proactive, because the only way to really be ahead of the curve is being proactive. And today, the reality is a lot of organizations, they are reactive. They only do things when there is a breach. They only do things when they only respond when there is an attack going on. That's why a lot of companies, they invest first in threat detection rather than doing the homework. And across the industry, there is a common sense and many studies that already show that 98% of the attacks could have been prevented with basic security hygiene. So got to think about that as well. All right, so now we get all those agnostic planning guidelines, and we bake this into the requirements of how Defender for Cloud can help you with that. So the first thing that you can do is use what we call the foundational CSPM, because this is a free tier type of plan where you can basically enable in your Azure subscription and start doing some analysis. So if you think about step number 2, which is really understand your cloud secure posture, you should be right away using this plan. You don't pay for that, but it gives you the complete inventory of your workloads. It gives you capabilities to do advanced remediation, because there are some quick fix that you can do. So it's going to use the Microsoft Cloud Secure Benchmark analysis to scan all your workloads and provide you with secure recommendations. Again, this is free. You can use out of the box without having to enable any paid plan. So this will allow you and enable you to not only understand which workloads you have in the cloud, but also start elevating your security posture by remediating some of those recommendations. And you can integrate this out of the box as well with a lot of workflows and automate that. So this is part of the free tier, and this is how it's going to help you with that. Now, as you elevate your secure posture and use something called the security score to understand your KPI and how you are evolving, you're going to automatically feel the need to continue evolving your journey. So if you think about steps 3 and 4, how can Defender for Cloud help? Well, now you are going to the next level. And this next level basically means you need to have advanced capabilities that are really part of the CNAPP to help you with this journey. So we have a plan called Defender CSPM that has agentless vulnerability scanning across VMs and Kubernetes that you can leverage to start understanding the secure assessment of those workloads. And with Defender CSPM, you are already expanding also the cloud providers. You will be able to monitor resources not only in Azure, but AWS and GCP. It integrates all the insights. So what happened is all those insights is going to feed what we call the attack path. So the attack path is a way for you to disrupt potential attacks. I'm going to demonstrate that. And this attack path will give you contextual visibility across different workloads. We provide proactive threat hunting with the Cloud Security Explorer. All the requirements, the regulatory compliance requirements, you can also fulfill by using the regulatory compliance dashboard. And one important point, which is very challenging, which is, okay, I am on this journey, but I'm have a hard time to improve my security posture because I'm not the database administrator, so I cannot remediate vulnerabilities in the database. I need to understand who owns the database, and then I need to reach out to that person to ask them to mitigate those vulnerabilities in their database. So I need help with that. And that's why we have the governance capability that allows you to assign tasks to workload owners, establish SLA, and manage all that. So that's a very important capability as well. And last but not least, as part of this package, we also have the data-aware secure posture, because one of the key steps that I was mentioning is understanding your data set. What is data? Which type of data do you have? So the data-aware secure posture capability does this smart scanning across your data state to understand what is PII, what is credit card information, all those things that is necessary for you to have a better visibility and take smarter decisions. Because when you are evaluating which things you need to prioritize first, you definitely need help to understand if there is data sensitivity involved. So that's the other thing we have. And there is a 30-day trial for Defender CSPM. You can use that. You can do a proof of concept to really explore all the capabilities and see how it fits your scenario. So that's also a good tip for a POC as you move forward on your CNAPP adoption. Now that you've gone through this, let's think about workload protection, because now you've done what we call the proactive work. You are elevating your protection mechanisms. You are elevating your security posture. Let's say you start your journey and the security score of your environment was 50. Now you are already in 90%. Now you also want to start thinking about threat detection. So what we have, what you need to take in consideration when it comes to threat detection is you need to understand which workloads, specifically workloads in runtime, you need to monitor to identify potential attempts to compromise. So you need to have threat detection across different cloud providers, across your DevOps, across your APIs. In where are they? Where are they located? And what type of workloads they are? Is Kubernetes? Is VMs? Storage accounts? You need to take into consideration all that. You need to understand also that each workload has a different need. So again, going back to what I said, tailor threat detection for each workload is a must. And different workloads will have different profiles. As I said, you may have one server that is exposed to the internet because it has a connectivity to the internet, but does not have so much data sensitivity or any like type of risky if it gets compromised in a first view, in a first assessment. But as you dig deep into that workload, you actually identify that workload has a connectivity with other VMs, and it will actually allow a threat actor to move laterally from that server to another VM, and from that VM go to a storage account that has PII. So now you have the attack path to help you with that as well, because there are insights coming from those different workloads. So assessing the risk and understanding deeply if that workload is really low risk or high risk. And to help you with that, we have the different plans. This is plans for each workload. So our research team, they work very closely with the product team for each workload to develop signals, analytics that were tailored for the threat landscape of each workload. And this is our portfolio today across compute, service layer, database, AWS, GCP, and on-prem. So we have threat detection for all these workloads. So how can you operationalize that? Okay, now that you left and you finish, how can you actually make this work? So there are some key scenarios that I want to talk about. One is risk-based approach to posture management. Is basically how can you prioritize what is most risky for your needs, for your environment. And that's the biggest advantage of CNAPP when compared to cloud security posture management, the traditional CSPM, because it's not only a benchmark, it's not only a static assessment, it's an assessment based on risk factors for your environment. The other thing is, how can I proactively disrupt potential attacks? So that's another scenario that CNAPP is going to help you with. And those scenarios here are scenarios that you can do proof of concept. The other one is, how can I leverage CNAPP to improve my data security posture? Because it's all about visibility. If you don't know where the data is located, you really will not be able to protect. So scanning the data asset and then prioritizing what is important for you is the key for everything. Detect and respond is basically understand how can you leverage all those insights to empower your SOC team. That's huge, because at the end of the day, if we use the concept of assume breach, the mindset should be, I may get compromised at some point, but I need to detect fast and respond fast. And so how can I leverage the insights from my CNAPP to empower my SOC analysts to quickly respond to attacks? So this is some of the key scenarios, and I'm going to demonstrate some of these right now. So let me switch here to our environment. So this is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. If you've seen this for the first time, that's the main dashboard of Defender for Cloud that gives you this overall assessment across all the cloud providers. So here I have information related to Azure, the AWS accounts that are connected, the GCP projects and everything. I have the overall view of my security posture with some critical recommendation that I need to address and everything. So the first scenario that I want to demonstrate is really the disruption of potential attacks using the attack path analysis. So one of the things that I mentioned is that the idea of obtaining insights from all the workloads is one of the biggest advantage of CNAPP. So when you enable Defender CSPM, we scan all the workloads and we start feeding the insights of those workloads to build the attack path. So we analyze potential areas of attack on your environment and we build those attack paths. So when I look at the attack path here, it will show the list of the most critical attack paths, okay? So here, one great KPI that you should aim for is reduce this number, reduce the number of total attack paths, right? Because if you start your journey to the CNAPP and you see that you have this amount of attack path, well, you should be trending down the next couple of weeks. And one of the things that we released recently is you are now able to consume this data into log analytics. So you can export the data to this log analytics and then start doing some rationalization of this data into a dashboard. Luckily, our team also built a workbook that consumed this data. So big shout out to the author of the workbook, Julio from my team. He actually created a very nice dashboard that allows you to consume this data and see trends related to the attack path. This workbook will be out pretty soon in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned on that. So here we have an example of an attack path across a lot of workloads. So let's take a look on this first one. When you look at this, you look at the entry point, in this case here, and the target. which means that in the environment, right? So this is a AWS one. So it looks at the vulnerability and it looks the entry point of the attack. So when you open the attack path, we tell a little story here, which is very nice because it helps you to understand what's going on. So we have here the story of the attack, what the attacker is going to be able to do. Okay. The other thing that is important to notice here is the risk factors. Why this is on top of the list? If we are using this top-down approach, why this is on the top of the list? Well, it's on the top of the list because of those risk factors. It deals with critical resource, it deals with internet exposure, vulnerabilities, potential lateral movements, and we map all these things to the might attack framework. So we show you exactly what are the different phases of the might attack that this attack path is going to operate. So looking at the attack path itself, if we look at here to the attack self itself, right, we have this very nice map, okay, that shows the IP that is exposed, that has a route to this AWS EC2 network interface, that has a route to this EC2 instance. Now, when you look at this, there is a different icon, a couple of icons here. There is a list and a light bulb. So when I click on this, because I have insights, every time that I see this light is because I have insights. When I look at the insights, I can see that this EC2 instance has a lot of CVEs open, right? So that's something that is not good. So I should definitely take care of that. There is also some exposure factors why this EC2 is exposed. And most important, this EC2 actually contains, okay, connection to AWS string right here. And this AWS strings can authenticate to an AWS RDS DB instance. The problem here is when I look at the insights is that this AWS instance has social security, right? So that's the power of collecting all those insights and feeding the attack path of the insight. So in other words, with this dashboard, you can understand how the attacker can move laterally. And why this is so risky? Well, because at the end of the day, you have a direct path to a database that has social security information. So you really want to remediate that right away. You have to considering going to this EC2 instance and doing some work to remediate this recommendation. Because everything here can be solved if you basically do this remediation. So it helps you to prioritize what is important to your environment. And once you do that, what's going to happen is once you remediate that, you disrupt the attack path because now there is no way to exploit this machine and move to the database. So that's the power of the attack path. It's really giving you this insight, right? And again, we organize this from top to bottom based on those risk factors. So those risk factors here is really what dictates what is important to your environment. So that's one approach, the attack path. The other approach and the other thing that you also can do is you will see that during this journey to improve your secure posture, you're going to have a lot of recommendations, And the way that you are going to prioritize what is important is using the risk-based approach recommendation dashboard, which is this dashboard here, because now I'm organized this in criticality based again on risk factors. So risk factors here is playing the role to tell you which recommendation will be the most important for you to remediate right now. So when I click on machine should have vulnerability find resolved, I can understand here that this is not only a very critical recommendation to remediate, but look, this is what I think is awesome about this dashboard is if I remediate this recommendation, I'm going to disrupt A attack paths. So this is really tailored to environments where you don't have really a lot of manpower to resolve things. You really don't. Your team is a small team. So how can you optimize resolving things that will have the most impact to the environment? Well, here it goes. When you use this dashboard, it basically tells you you can disrupt 8 attack paths. And this is the one that you really need to do it first. So again, it tells a really nice story about this. It tells you who the owner of the resource is and the risk factors. And here, when I go to graph, it shows me again the attack path that I'm going to disrupt. In this case here is basically a virtual machine, right? That has some CVEs that are exposed as well. Now this one is in Azure, and it has permission to a storage account, and this storage account has sensitivity information, okay? So this is another one that is very important. And you may ask, okay, how does this tool knows that there is sensitive information? Well, because of data secure aware posture is part of the Defense CSPM. So even if you don't have a very specific data classification tool, the Defender CSPM has that already built in. And we even offer a data security dashboard to allow you to have this broader visualization of your data state. So here in this dashboard, you are able to see the different breakdown of your data assets, where the data is located. You are able to see the sensitive resources. And we also cross information that helps you to identify, for example, if there is already an attack going on. Because if you think about different teams will consume this data. The posture management team is usually the one that consumes the core of the data from the attack path and from the recommendations. And the SOC team is working more on the incident response perspective, so they need alerts. But in this dashboard, you actually have the capability to see both, because one of the things that we do here is we show if there are already attacks taking place against your data. So if we look here down below, there is this 3 sensitive resource with high severity alerts. Now, from the terminology standpoint, it's very important to mention that attacks means there are threat actors actively attacking the environment, which means that you need to respond because there is an active threat going on. So when I click on this high severity alert, it shows me that there is actually a brute force attempt happening against this workload. And when I click on view full details, I will see that there is an attack going on against this database, okay, this Ninja SQL database. And guess what? This Ninja SQL database has sensitive information. So this is very critical to me. That means that there is already a threat actor that is working, actively working, and according to the mapping to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, is in the pre-attack phase doing brute force. It didn't exploit yet, but you know how brute force works. It will continue until it be able to go through, right? So that's the pre-attack, and that's the capability that you have that you will be able to see. Now, let me go back to this slide because I think that I'm almost on time. If someone can give me a cue there, I think that I'm almost on time and I need to wrap up this.
We're actually a little over, Yuri. Sorry.
I'm a little over, so I'm gonna finish this real quick. Sorry for that. It's just so exciting subject. All right, so when you think about CNAPP, please download the ebook. There we talk about the CNAPP maturity model, which really will help you to go from this traditional approach all the way to optimal utilization of the platform. This is slided from the ebook. The ebook is available to aka.ms/MS CNAPP. And there is a lot of other resources available as well on the chat. We will share a bunch of other links for you. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that you have a great event.